Hey guys, MrPokke here. This is probably gonna be one of my last few videos in the upcoming version 3.4 early access. This time discussing the brand new two planars that we are gonna be getting, Arcadia of Woven Dreams as well as the DOT Revelry by the Sea, right? Just going through all the effects and most importantly, should you as a player even farm for them in the first place? So jumping straight into the effects very quickly, the Arcadia is gonna be essentially for players that are playing with either phainon, which is the only unit that can make you have one unit on the field, or if you're gonna be playing with Mimo sprites. So if they have more than 4 allies, every single additional ally is going to be 9%, then every single one missing ally is going to be 12%. So this means that the only guy that can make use of this full 36% as of this current moment is pretty much going to be phainon. For the Mimo sprite, which is going to be you need 8 ally targets on the entire field to get a 36% full damage buff. As of this current moment, there pretty much only is going to be Castorice as well as Aglaea, and I'm going to be discussing whether or not you should even be considering them in the first place, right? So taking a look into the design is going to be, when I first saw this like rope as well as the Planar sphere, I just thought that, you know, man just met an unfortunate demise. It's actually gonna be Woven Dreams, so it's actually gonna be Membran's Maze of Hades Elysia, right? There are so many little fairies, so they are basically just gonna be sleeping, just a little bit EP, so just a quick little design. I think it's pretty cute, right? So that is pretty much gonna be for the Arcadia, and then for the Revelry by the Sea, increase attack by 12%, and when the wearer's attack is higher or equals to 2.4 or 3.6k, increase DOT damage dealt by 12 or 24%. So you're pretty much always gonna be aiming for the 3,600 attack. So if you want to compare this with the closest substitute, it's pretty much going to be Glamorph. Previously, it's going to be at 160 speed, which gives you the additional damage. But unfortunately, because the purely for the multipliers alone in this DOT damage dealt, Revelry is just pretty much going to be the direct upgrade for Glamorph. But the good side for Glamorph is that you can actually use them for units outside from the DOT damage dealt, right? So yeah, and captured in the Planar sphere is Styxia, the city drowned in eternal reverie, right? So this entire thing is based on Styxia, which I feel like the team, it does remind me a little bit of like Hycelin's, which further signifies the fact that, you know, she's most likely going to be the unit that's going to be making use of this Revelry by the Sea by the time she comes out in version 3.5. Very little like musical-ish design going by like the themes and the chords and everything, which ties very nicely with Hycelin's the whole violin theme and everything, right? So that is pretty much going to be the quick overview of how they actually look as well as their effects. So in summary, Arcadia is pretty much limited to phainon for now, while Revelry is for upcoming DOT units. Thank you so much and have a nice day. Okay, I'm just kidding, right? But essentially for Arcadia, let's just break down this step over here. This Planar's effect is essentially a 36% damage buff for the wearer as well as Mimo sprite, perfectly giving phainon the full effect when he's the only person on field. Unfortunately, that is pretty much where it ends because no one else as of now can make use of the flip side, which is the Mimo sprite's ally stacking all the way to 8 units. Aglaea could use this, but she is more or less tied to Sunday as well as Robin, and Castorice could also use this, but she also more or less gonna be tied with Tribi and Cypher, right? And then on top of that, Aglaea's banana 2-piece, rather the TV 2-piece, as well as the Castorice bone 2-piece, they are still very competitive in terms of damage. And as of now, we don't really have a 4th remembrance slot, you know, to fit with Aglaea and Castorice to make use of the full 36% damage percentage buff, right? So I've showed you guys before for Rutilan Arena versus Arcadia's comparison for phainon. You can check out in this graph over here, resulting in a less than 2% damage differential between both sets, right? So here are my findings for Aglaea and Castorice respectively, which are pretty much going to be the only other 2 units that could potentially use this set. Aglaea was done with Sunday, Robin, and Hyacinth, so only 18% from Arcadia was going to be active. So you can see over here, Banana Lightning as well as Arcadia Lightning, these are going to be the subsets. We are going to be getting a roughly 2.6% worse damage from Garment Maker, as well as a 2.2% less damage from your enhanced basic attack, right? So this is going to be an effect of 18%, which means that you're missing out on a lot of the percentage. So in the future, I could foresee that more remembrance supports coming out. If they can synergize with Aglaea, then this effect can actually be very competitive with the banana set, right? Then Castorice was going to be done with RMC, Tribi, as well as Hyacinth, and Arcadia managed with 27%, but still not hitting the full 36%. So you can see this damage over here. Arcadia is going to be dealing 94.1% from the enhanced skill, but the Polar's Blood is actually going to be favoring Arcadia slightly here. So Aglaea generally was definitely better with banana because she only benefits 18% for now, while Castorice, there was a little bit more nuance between both the enhanced skill as well as the Polar's Blast. But I can foresee that these remembrance DPSs, they scale better with Arcadia if we are going to be getting more teammates, like I mentioned, going into the full 4-man remembrance for 8 total units as of now, the difference is just way too minor or just not even favoring them at all compared to the old Relic sets, right? So that is pretty much gonna be it for Arcadia. TLDR, phainon best in slot, which also just really is not gonna be that big of an improvement, especially compared to Routine Arena. And then Aglaea and Castorice for now really just coming use of the full effect, right? Then for the Revelry, okay, so this Revelry set, it is essentially the better upgrade to Glamoth, who was the de facto DOT 2-piece for the longest time. Now with the additional 24% DOT damage and 12% attack, the numbers alone are already superior to the 18% damage from Glamoth. The only upside for Glamoth is that this is all damage sources instead of only DOT, so your direct damages from like Kafka's ultimate, Black Swan's ultimate, the initial hit itself, that would also gain that benefit from the damage, whereas for this Revelry is strictly DOT. But in the grand scheme of things, majority of where all your DOT damage is coming from is strictly going to be from DOT anyways, so this is going to be fine. The condition to hit 160 speed for Glamoth, it can also be quite negligible if you're going to be running Kafka with Cypher's signature Light Cone, but it can be quite difficult for players who are not using Run Mei, not using E2 Babin, or not having enough speed subs to hit that 160 speed, especially for Black Swan. Because for Kafka, you could use like your Kafka signature, Cypher's signature, all this kind of stuff to boost Kafka's speed, but for Black Swan, if you're going to be running her with either Black Swan signature, Jiao Qiu signature, or even like the Sambo Eyes of Prey, it's really difficult to hit 160 speed for Black Swan under most circumstances, especially for most players, right? So this brand new Revelry, the benchmark being at 3.6k attack, is going to be a lot more accessible because it might look a little bit hard, especially since you do want to run elemental damage with your DOT, especially when pairing with Babin, but especially because you're already going to be pairing with Babin, and then if you slap on a Huehues or 40% attack buff on top of Kafka's brand new EHR percentage into attack conversion, you are pretty much guaranteed to hit minimum 3,000, if not even 4,000 attack in battle, so you shouldn't really face that big of an issue whatsoever, right? So for the comparison between Glamoth and Revelry, I'm gonna be so for real, I tried to get the exact same scenario for both sides, but because of Arcana's RNG proc as well as the toughness bar breaking, it was just like way too difficult for me to get the exact accurate measurements, so I decided to just see where both ended up in before going to the second wave for Memory of Chaos 12. Honestly, there also wasn't really too big of a difference. Most notably was Hyacinth was not using her ultimate the entire time for this run, and Kafka getting that a little bit of energy for the ultimate and just essentially using one of the follow-up attacks, right? I did find Revelry to have more leeway despite having the bad RNG because Automatron actually summoned his fish and we had that weakened debuff, but it was inconsequential since we eventually can cleanse on command with Hyacinth by wave 2. So I would say for Revelry, the biggest benefit between both would be the removal of the Glamour speed requirements, because for both showcases, without E2 Robin, without E2 Rami or whatever, it was not really feasible for my Black Swan to hit 160 speed without some really good speed subsets. So the accessibility for most DOT players in the Glamour set, it will be harder to achieve without these units. Because from what I'm gonna be guessing is that for that Robin slot or the Rame slot, eventually they do want to slightly probably pivot into Hyacinth, so we would see most likely a triple DOT rising up, if not Hyacinth replacing Black Swan. But that aside, speed requirement is still going to be a little bit of an annoyance, right? So if Hyacinth is also going to be like a Black Swan where she wants to stack on as much attack as humanly possible, it could be a little bit hard to expect her to hit 160 speed, especially if you either run triple DOT with none of the speed buffers, or if you just don't have enough speed subsets, right? So that's pretty much it. And at the bottom of it all, should you farm for these brand new 3.4 planners? Ultimately, the answer depends if you want to play DOT or not, right? Because DOT is really like the main focus here, since Arcadia's real purpose is strictly pretty much just phainon, and the improvement is really just not that high. And even DOT mains, you might want to consider holding off unless you know that your Glamour sets cannot reach the full potential. That is gonna be the 160 speed, right? If you can hit 160 speed that you have already have because you have been farming DOT for like the past 10,000 years, then maybe the upgrade might not even be that substantial. Or if you are a DOT main and you want to pivot back into phainon and you have not farmed Routine Arena back then I think this is a pretty fresh start, right? The main reason being your Arcadia's competitor is going to be Routine Arena and your Revelry's competitor is going to be Glamoth. And both of these competitors, they have very good secondary planar sets, being the Broken Kill as well as Panagani respectively, where players can actually make use of at the same time while farming for DPS upgrades. So if you're going to be getting Broken Kill, you can upgrade your supports, you can upgrade your sustains, and if you're going to be getting Panagani, most of the supports can sustains can also run the same thing, right? So unless you know that you will use both of the Revelry as well as Arcadia, which means that you are using both phainon plus DOT at the same time, the stamina efficiency, in my opinion, is going to be a little bit skeptical, and that is going to be my biggest gripe with farming this particular domain, right? Now, of course, if your roots in Arena as well as Glamorph are really bad, and you really have really good support sets, you have like, 11 speed, 10 speed Broken Kill, 10 speed Pentagony, and you just have not gotten any good DPS sets, farming this domain, especially for DOT mains, would be very ideal, and I cannot really see any other DPS as of this current point of time making use of Arcadia besides from phainon. So players not interested in phainon, you would do best to hold off until more DPS in the future comes out, which can actually work with Arcadia next time, or more supports come out which can link back into Aglaea and Castorice so that they can actually make the better use of Arcadia set, right? So with that, we have come to this very quick little video of Shiyu be farming for the brand new 3.4 Planar sets. Let me know what you guys in the comments below. I think I'm almost done with the 3.4 stuff. Maybe I got one more Zero Cycle left in me, but yeah, the release is gonna be next week, so I was looking forward to see you guys there. Well, today is gonna be Holy Overworking Uma Musume, sweetie. Join to the all the best of Gacha Boost. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.